Harrison Talks Pod, episode 25. Welcome back. I hope you've been having a great day and a great week. It's a day early here, so we are recording before there are games tonight, and we are 1 week away from the regular season finishing and the play-in and the playoffs. So today I have a fun segment for us breaking down the playoff pictures, and then I'm going to talk more video games. Been talking so much about video games past couple of weeks with having not just one, but two Nintendo presentations, and I'm going to be super negative today. So, hey, if you want basketball content, stick around. Next, if you want gaming content, skip ahead. If you want everything, you want the vibes, just stay right where you are. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, so first off, let's talk some basketball. And I'm recording this on a Monday evening in Thailand or a Monday morning back home in America. So a little bit earlier than what we usually do, but hey, we'll get it out before the next games start, hopefully. That's always difficult. April 6th is the date, which means we are just 1 week away from the last day of the regular season, April 13th. And April 15th is when the play-in starts. And playoffs will begin April 19th, one day after the play-in is over. So, quick rundown in the East. And wow, such a big contrast because in the East, although not all of the standings are uh, finalized just yet, we do know who are the top teams, who are the playoff teams, the six playoff teams, and we do know who are the four play-in teams as well. Cavaliers 62 and 16. They have a chance to tie the 66, 16, 08, 09 Cavaliers record, the historic LeBron year, or one of them. Celtics 58 and 20 have been a great team. I think the last few weeks we've been saying that they're looking like the top team in the East right now. Yes, just consistently winning, not losing, lots of back-to-back games recently. So, yeah. Knicks, I believe, will stay at third, and we'll talk about it just a little bit in this next segment, but they are 50 and 28. Won't be as good in the standings as last season, being second, but they will have a better record overall. Pacers have a chance to go into third, but they are 3 games behind the Knicks at 47 and 31. They've clinched, and they have clinched a top 4 spot in the East. I'll hold off a little bit on them because they're one of my favorites to talk about. Let's keep going on. Bucks have won the last 4. Pistons have also won the last 4. Just clinched their top 6 spot. Super exciting as well. Just like of East teams. And then the play-in, same as what we talked about last week in the same order, right? Yes, Magic, Hawks, Bulls, Heat. Or did it flip? Last week, I believe it was Hawks. Yes, last week it was Hawks, Magic, Bulls, Heat. But now Magic are 38-40, Hawks are 37 and 41. So, this is the last episode that we do for the regular season because next week we'll just be getting ready for the play-in, and I haven't decided what we're going to do for the playoffs. I know it's going to be once a week as usual, but if we can find time to sneak in some bonus reaction episodes, we're going to do that. So let's go with the East first. Oh, I need to do the West. Let's talk about the West breakdown. Okay, let's do that first. Thunder, 64 and 14. Best record in the league. Yes, did not win today. See what they do in the last 4 games, getting ready for the playoffs because they are 12 games above the Rockets in second place. What a leap for the Rockets. Yeah, huge, huge leap from season and so many young teams that are fun to watch at the top, and they're like a top five young team. Wow, it's amazing to think about. Lakers are in third, 48 and 30. Nuggets are behind them at 47 and 32. So that's a game and a half difference. So with 4 games to go, there is still a lot of things that could change. Because then at 46 and 32, as we stand on a Monday morning, heading into the basketball week, between 5 and 8, those 4 teams are 46 and 32. Clippers, Warriors, Timberwolves, and Grizzlies are all tied, and the Timberwolves and Grizzlies play against each other. I should have looked at these tiebreakers, but Timberwolves are tied at 8, right? But they have to still play, and then we have Clippers and Warriors. I'll fact check later who has that tiebreaker, but actually, it's right here. I believe Clippers do. I'm pretty sure. So, anyways, not only do we have a four-way tie in the standings, um, there's only 2 games, two full third place and eighth place. And beyond that, um, there can be no other changes. Ninth place is Kings at 38 and 40, but potentially, we could see a big mix-up. We could see Lakers lose some of the games. Nuggets win. Someone go on a streak because between 3 and 8 is where we're not really too sure about where everything is going to stand. So yin and yang, perhaps. I don't know. The East is mostly decided. The places where we would not know in the East right now are between the Bucks and the Pistons, and then the play-in, perhaps the Magic and Hawks flip again, or the Heat and Bulls. Actually, the Heat could go all the way up into the seventh spot, which is a interesting what if. It's a along with the Mavericks are going to be in the play-in tournament. I assume because I'm not going to do a third week in a row of why the Phoenix Suns are disappointing. So, anyways, let's get into it. Now I'm in the right order. Let's start with the East. It's a little bit more consistent, and I'm going to tell you what I predict and what I want or what I want. We'll do it team by team, but hey, it's my segment. We've been doing some really stat heavy. I did a lot of research this week, but um it'll be a little bit lighter, a little bit more fun, I hope. So, okay. First one. Cavaliers, of course, are in first in the East, and let's say they play the Magic. Let's say the Magic um get into the eighth spot. Let's say they lose a playing game, win the second one. They start at 7 or 8. I don't know. And then we get an exciting matchup of two very exciting young cores that play very good defense. And I think for this one, Cavaliers would win and win easily, but I don't think it's going to be a 4-game sweep. So maybe it's not easy. Maybe it is 6. Maybe it is 7. And we'll get into why I think the first round is going to be super fun to watch, super competitive. So I would love to see it. Show me, Mobley and Garland, Mitchell, of course, but, show me those young players. Show me Wagner and Bencaro on the other side. And it would be super fun, super competitive. Giving it to the Cavs, of course, because they've been a more complete team all year round. As I said, they have a chance to close out with tying the franchise record in wins. And for the Magic, they are 12-6 over their last 18 games. So they are certainly finishing strong, peaking at the right time, and health has done most of that. Well, I shouldn't say most of it, but it's helped a lot, of course. Moving ahead, Celtics are going to be second. Celtics, I think, are the team to beat in the East. Champions last season, but they've shown that they are, I think, the most complete team, putting out a 8 or 9 or less or 7-man lineup. And I think until they get knocked out, that's what I'm going for. Cavaliers have had an historic year and one that was maybe a bit ahead of schedule or unprecedented, given that they've um, only have won one playoff series since LeBron has been gone, since 1993, besides the LeBron years. So certainly ahead of schedule in that way. But anyways, Celtics, I think, win the series against the Hawks. Yeah, I think Hawks, let's say Hawks beat the Magic in the first play-in game, and that's still right, isn't it? It's still 7-8 versus 9-10, right? Okay, anyways. But Hawks seed, and it would be the same seeding last year. Same seeding as last year. Celtics versus Hawks, 2 versus 7. And Celtics win because they have more depth, they have better defense, and they've just been more consistent, or perhaps the most consistent for the second half of the NBA season. Atlanta, super fun team to watch, leading the league in pace, have had role players that have stepped up by a lot this year. And it's unfortunate that if it does come down to this and it does end this way, that it would end this soon. Because, yeah, while the West might be the best conference still, the East is just getting so much better over time. And it's hard to say what the Hawks do exactly in the off season, but we're not going to get into that now. They have money, but they will have some players that will need to be signed or need to get someone else. Leading the league in pace, can certainly hang around. Uh, would not be surprised if they won a game or two in that series. We move ahead. Next one is perhaps the most fun to talk about, and let's make people mad. So let's assume that Knicks are 3 games ahead of the Pacers. So let's assume that they stay in the 3 seed. And Pistons, let's say the Pistons stay in the 6 seed where they are now. Did we say they are just 1 game behind? So it could change. That would be really interesting to see them get all the way into fifth after their franchise record in losses last season. Anyways, let's say Knicks 3 versus Pistons 6. And hey, since it's my list, and I said I would be going off preference a little bit, let's pick the Pistons for an upset. Hey, why not? They've been able to compete with lots of teams in the East this season. They have a young up and coming star. Not saying that this is a team that is ready to be built around Cade Cunningham to make a super long playoff run, but I would love to see it if I had to pick. But I would like to see the Knicks get further ahead, I guess, which means that they're going to the conference finals if that's what we would be going for. But if the Pistons could go in one season from a franchise record and losses to not only the playoffs, but a series win, that's just very hugely. 17-65 last season. Knicks, fourth best field goal percentage in the league. Efficient, tough, And as I mentioned, even though they will be third in the league this year or fourth, but most likely third, and they were second last season, this team has improved. I think we could agree on that. All right, and let's do last one here, which is Pacers. Pacers would be fourth, and Bucks would be fifth. This one's really tough. This one's the toughest one to think about in the East. I think this would be very close. I think it could go either way for different reasons. I think this could be a 7-game series, and I would be rooting for both of these teams for different reasons. I'm going with Pacers. And Pacers and pace go right together this season. Had they improved since last season in pace? I'm sure they have. Anyways. Anyway, if they can control tempo, push the pace, they're going to be able to get ahead and win these games. So I think it comes down to which team can dictate more in the off season. Hard to say. Pacers second half of the season have looked like a different team almost. They started the season going. They started like 6-9, and then at one point they were 10 and 5. What did they end for the All Star? Before the All Star, oh, because they had the overtime win against Washington. That's right. Yeah, I remember that. Before the break, they were 30-23, so they were already 7 games ahead by the break. Still think it's the one team in the East that not many people are talking about, and whatever it might be, not one of the biggest superstars, not one of the biggest markets. What an interesting storyline if the Pacers could make it and could go on a run. Because I've been watching a good bit of them the second half of the season, and again, if they can beat the Bucks, who we'll talk about in just a moment, but I I think they have a chance to. Hard to say because they would be facing most likely the Cavaliers in the second round, but certainly interesting. And I look forward to a lot more people taking notice of them or taking notice of them for the first time. Giannis 3 days ago just had a 35 point, 17 rebound, 20 assist game. So might be peaking at the right time. And we know what Lillard has to fight for, has to compete for. I think them as a duo have only improved last 2 seasons. So I will be so excited to watch the series if that's what happens. Let's go to the West. Let's take no breaks. Let's just go right to the West. So, um, we know the Thunder are first, and we know the Rockets have clinched their division, and they've clinched a playoff spot. But other than that, we're not really too sure who is playoff or play-in. Actually, can I get into? No, they cannot. Okay, so Rockets are clinched division and playoffs. So Thunder are first, and the play-in teams right now would be the Timberwolves, Grizzlies, Kings, and Mavericks. We haven't talked about Mavericks too much just yet. Let's pretend Mavericks get eliminated for this. Spoiler alert. I don't include the Mavericks in this one. We talked about them last week, 2 weeks ago, perhaps for the last time for a little bit. Anyways, I digress. Wasting too much time this evening. Let's say they play the Timberwolves. So, Timberwolves, let's pretend they lose the first play-in game to the Grizzlies, and then they win the second play-in game against the Kings. I don't know. Uh, but they are then the eighth seed. And no surprises, I would say Thunder win that one. But uh, the Western Conference is going to be highlighted a lot with these predictions and preferences. But this would be a good preference for me. SGA versus Anthony Edwards in the first round. Perhaps the two biggest up and coming stars in the league, certain age, under the age of 26 or 27. I forget how old SGA is. SGA will probably win MVP this season. So seeing this matchup is just going to highlight how good the West actually is because Timberwolves do not seem like a team that should be an eighth place team recently. They just seem like a team that can beat almost any team in the West. So it would be competitive. It would get a chance for the Thunder to show off their depth and their dominance. I will be locked into this one, just like probably all the other ones, but just seeing what kind of rotations the Thunder would put out and how many players they would play. And yeah, 62-12 for the Thunder. Historic season for this young team. And Anthony Edwards, 27.4 points per game, is fourth in the league. So we know Rockets are next. Oh, I said Grizzlies for my example, but I'm changing that. Changing that. How about what if we say the Clippers? Let's say so Clippers are in currently in fifth because I think they have a tiebreaker to the Warriors or they're just tied, I don't know. And but they are tied in record as we said between 6, 7, and 8. Oh, okay. And let's say the Rockets win the series. Let's say it's 6 games. There would be a lot of defense, and it would be quite interesting to see the young Rockets versus the more older, with the veteran superstar presence of the Clippers, who have played great um, in a lot of these games down the stretch. Certainly a team that I should pay attention to more. And all the worries that I would have are the worries that any other person who talks about basketball on a podcast would have. So we know already. We know that it's health and availability and all of those things that are not fun. Of course. Um, Rockets are youthful, 15-2 in their last 17 games, going all the way up to the second seed in the West. And James Harden, there's that part as well. Rockets have not been in a playoff series in the last 5 years and have not been in a playoff series since they had James Harden. And since then, have had two new head coaches come in. So lots of changes, and it would certainly, I think, be highlighted as the James Harden versus the old team, the Rockets, a team. Perhaps he retires there. Who knows? Yeah. So we would see that. It might be the best defensive matchup we see in the West. And let's move ahead and let's say Lakers. So Lakers are a game and a half above Nuggets for fourth. That's right. And they are 2 games above 5 through 8. So as far as we know, they could be the third seed. Let's put them in the third seed. And of course, come on, it's a preference. But as it stands now, if the season ended today in its really weird fashion, Warriors are 6 now, so Lakers Warriors. Lakers Warriors in first round. Again. Or I guess they had the play in, but another Steph Curry, LeBron James series. And not only that, but it's so much different now that the whole Luka situation happened. And it goes even further than that. Steph Curry was held to 3 points against the Rockets last night. I watched the second half of that game. Amazing play by the Rockets. would not want to see that team in the first round or just in general. So amazing, but Curry has been, I think he's was top 5 in MVP. Will go down after tonight, but and then LeBron, my opinion, top 10 in the league in the second half of the season. Will he be all NBA this season? I'm not really too sure. But anyways, now I have Luka Doncic, so there's that factor as well. But hey, there's a good chance we get this in the first round. And if we do, there's going to be nothing that gets bigger ratings than that. And I'm sure the league is rooting for it. Hey, I'm rooting for it too because how many more opportunities do we get? You never know if it's the last one for the postseason. So I pick Lakers for that one. If it happens, I pick Lakers to win. They were playing in the one of those afternoon games, which are very dumb, but put up 78 points in the half, right? 78 points in the half against the Thunder. And then they won 126-99, but I think took the foot off the gas in the third quarter. So, uh, yeah, they have a chance to be an historic offense when it's all clicking. And I've watched games that they have lost and that they've had a negative plus minus with the big three, I'll say. Yeah. LeBron, Luca Reeves. But when it does work, it's pretty amazing. Watching some of the plays Luca was making from the game yesterday afternoon. So yeah. What else can we say about that? Steph Curry, top offensive threat. Uh, would hope this is a long series if it happens. Really rooting for it. So then that leaves Nuggets for fourth, and let's say the Grizzlies get up into fifth. So let's say the Grizzlies get on top of that 5 through 8 run. It would be unique in a way because Lakers and Warriors or LeBron Warriors have had so many matchups. This would be the first meeting in NBA history between the Nuggets, Grizzlies, no play-in, no playoff, nothing. And I would take Nuggets to win because I don't know, it's Jokic and it's Jokic Murray potentially. So I think that has potential to be the best duo in the playoffs whenever they are together. And the Grizzlies made a coaching change. I don't know, but that was the most surprising coaching change in recent history, right? I would think so. Competitive, star power. Want to see the Grizzlies do well in the postseason. Also a team that I should watch more. Have watched more recently, but um, have some questions about depth. But it might be true for the Nuggets as well. I'm just taking the duo. I'm just taking that Jokic Murray duo. So that's it. I'm not going to talk about second round. You can take from what we did. I guess we would say then the Nuggets would be taking on the Thunder second round. Great. Perhaps the two best teams in the West, which is pretty common for the conference semifinals. All right, so let's take a quick break here. I'll be back for some not basketball talk. Horrible transition. I'll be back for some gaming talk. So yes, let's talk some gaming, some Nintendo, and the amount of video game and Nintendo news and content over the past 2 weeks is more than I perhaps have ever seen ever. And even though we covered the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, because I'll be specific, there's been 2 Directs in the last 2 weeks. Even though we covered it on Nintendo Therapy, and hey, as always, go check us out over there if you like the gaming content. We cover Nintendo news, rumors every week. We spotlight different games, different retro games over there. We have lots of fun. Very news heavy though, so yeah, hopefully we have more time. We're hoping for things to even out, even though it's been so very exciting. Check us out over there, but I have to talk about some gaming things today, and I'll frame it in gaming just overall while talking about Nintendo. I had a longer video planned on GTA 6 from last month when there were speculations that it might be $100 game and just more frustrations about that. But I kind of lost momentum there. So let's take that as an excuse to talk about Nintendo. That way, if you do listen to Nintendo Therapy this week, if you hear me reiterate myself, well, I'm doing it in a different framing. There we go. So it's been very exciting. On Nintendo Therapy last week, we spent almost 80 minutes talking about the entire direct, going in order, giving as many takes as we could, as much as we could fit in during that time, and enjoyed it because Nintendo Therapy is usually a positive podcast. We try to be constructive, which is what this is going to be. But this week we'll talk more about the negative. And wow, what crazy sort of reception that this is getting, at least in the online space. And I wonder what sort of reception it gets once more of the public figures out how much all this is and how much the system is going to be. If the system is $450 and then you want to get a pro controller that is $80 and a game that is $80 or $90 or an upgrade of a game that could be $20 more, but it's not a new game. And then there are free upgrades. So, um, two things for that. One, it's too expensive and we can just say that out front that it's just too expensive in my opinion, and it's too confusing. There are, I think, too many moving parts. We saw in the Switch One Direct 2 weeks ago, we saw a presentation on game sharing, which was surprising for digital games. And in my opinion, it is something that is too difficult because if Nintendo wanted to do game sharing, they could do it in a much more streamlined, sophisticated way. And I think this is an attempt for them to have more control over their digital assets while trying to appear as if so they are being innovative by doing something different or new. So in my opinion, not innovative, just different. Um, yes. And then in the Switch 2, we had the camera. We had GameCube coming to NSO, but Switch Online will not be a different tier, but there's no indication on if the paid tiers will increase or change ever. So some things um are changing, some things are not changing. Some games get free upgrades, some do not get free upgrades. Breath of the Wild, I'm kind of going all over the place. I had Breath of the Wild for later, but Breath of the Wild has a phone application that will go along with it, which I'm not even sure at this point if that is part of the paid addition to it, or if that's a free part that you can do. You see, I'm very confused about it. But my main concern there is, Breath of the Wild, if you've heard me on the other podcast I do, is a top 10, perhaps top 5 game for me all time. It's my favorite first party Nintendo Switch game. It's the first game I played on Nintendo Switch. I don't think about legacy too much when I'm playing these games. Yeah, and I don't worry too much about what this game will be 10 years later, but this did concern me just a little bit because if it's a cool addition, which we hope that it is, because if not, why would you add it? If it's a cool addition, what happens to it in 10 years? Is it still supported by Nintendo? Is it still supported on Android and iOS? Is Android and iOS what we have in 10 years or whatever? So it's more of a concern just about having the lost media. On top of, I know we can label this all as like a DLC, and I know that I've gotten more than my money's worth on Breath of the Wild and the DLC that I got from it, and Tears of the Kingdom, which I haven't finished yet, but yeah, I'll do it sometime this year. Paying more seems like a stretch. It really does. And watching some of the comparisons, and it's very funny to watch a video of a comparison of like a 1080 screen and a 4K screen, but then the video you're watching is 1080. It just, from what I saw, um, I think with having HDR on an LCD screen, it's going to bring out a lot of good things with the upgrade. But there's always the idea of what the Switch 2 OLED is going to be, assuming that will be perhaps a $500 system, who knows? But is it 1 year down the line? Is it 3 years down the line? I guess for the Switch original one, it was less than 4 years, I guess. So I'm not sure if it's going to be worth it. It's just I'm not sure if it's going to be worth the I guess $20 you have to pay to upgrade, and I'm worried that it sets a bad precedent, even if that's not what Nintendo is intending on doing. Because I've made a lot of comparisons about how I kind of see Nintendo and Apple being very, very similar. Not only do they work together more and more and more now, but there are similarities on the good end when it comes to giving consumers an experience and um, yeah, yeah, just the overall experience, I'll say. But there's also the bad as well. And I'm afraid that Nintendo has learned a little bit too much. Now, I'm not saying this is what they're doing now, because I think when they did Breath of the Wild, which was originally a Wii U game, they designed it. And Breath of the Wild, now that we've seen Tears of the Kingdom, is almost like a tech demo. I think they designed it as well as they could with the technology they had. But what if in the future, what if this works out? And what if they make lots of money from it and it is successful? Um, do we get into this phase of us buying games and then having to upgrade them gradually as new systems come out? And then does that make it so that we see more upgrades of systems? Just all things that are not going to be consumer friendly is where I would be extremely concerned. And if I were to predict, I have no idea, but if I were to predict, is this what I think Nintendo intended on doing? No. But it will be a decision they have to make. Um, they're going to have to think about it because it will be something that will bring in money. Or does it just help lead to the overall eventual video game crash? We saw a lot in the presentation where Nintendo, I think, is showing that they are setting the precedent, a word that I'm just using a lot today, for what this next generation or half generation of gaming is going to be. All the way to a From Software trailer for a exclusive Nintendo Switch only game, which was the most crazy announcement of the evening, I think, or the morning, depending on where you watch it. For me, it was evening. So don't like it. This thing is too expensive. I don't have to make it too complicated. I'm gonna ramble because it's my podcast, but overall, I think it's too expensive. If you wanted to put it in a framing where it's not so bad, I was listening to Wolf Den, one of my favorite YouTube channels as far as like editing goes, I would say, like video game content editing. So been following him for a long time. He went to some kind of hands-on presentation in New York that some other creators that I follow also went to. And he described it as, you could think of it as a handheld PC, which, okay, I can understand that. And I also think as well, if I didn't have my Steam Deck in front of me, I would feel that even more. Of course, there are well, I'm not even gonna compare the two. Steam Deck has sold 2 million units, which is super impressive for it is, and just so excited for SteamOS to come out and be implemented, and I hope that just leads to so much more innovation and consumer friendly because that's one of the big selling points of the Steam Deck. There's one comparison I can make then. My Steam Deck, yeah, it was pretty expensive when I bought it. It's gone down quite a bit now that, they're easier to get. But amount of money I saved buying games on Steam and playing them on there compared to a Nintendo tax I would pay, perhaps. Um, well, I did save a lot of money. Perhaps we do see games go down in the future for third party and independent games. We'll see. The other big standout is that there were tons of third-party developers, and we talked on Nintendo Therapy about how in the Switch One Direct coming off the Wii U, a lot of third-party developers were afraid of showing up. So, I'm reaching my closing thoughts. Yeah, getting tired. It's just the frustration as well with the pricing and uh, I think consumers of video games speak out, and I see numbers of these indie games, these solo indie games. Go check out Schedule One and check out the Steam numbers that game's putting out from a sole developer. I think a lot of gamers are speaking out and saying that they want fun games in the end. So Mario Kart World as an 80 or $90 game, it might be an 80 or $90 experience, but keep in mind that in the end you might be spending more money because they're not guaranteeing that there's going to be no DLC. Hopefully that gets addressed in the presentation or Mario Kart World presentation, I guess it's called, and we'll get more clarity on that because does $90 mean that you get this like full live service supported game? That would be very different from Nintendo. It was certainly a game that I was excited for, but yeah, um, it's hard for me to imagine paying any kind of it'd be hard for me to imagine any kind of game where I'm spending that sort of money unless I am getting like a full $60 full AAA gaming experience along with a multiplayer live service supported throughout the system experience. And even then, I don't know. And as far as GTA goes, yeah, I wrote a script last month because I was really just upset. Um, I've moved more into the business world. I'm a teacher, but I've moved more into the independent contractor, and I work with businesses now more than ever. And um, it's just that frustration of companies and huge companies. Biggest company in Japan being Nintendo, um, almost putting blame on consumers, it feels like sometimes, where companies can make mistakes and companies can waste money and spend money where they shouldn't, and they can restart Metroid Prime 4 two times and however many millions of dollars they spent on that. But then if it gets used to justify it to consumers, I feel like that's very strange because I don't wanna hear about any of that. I don't have any involvement in those kind of decisions or those numbers or anything. So the fact that, money is wasted or or projects cost more because project always cost more, I would imagine, than they would expect. Yeah, it just gets a bit old. I guess let's leave it there. It just gets a little bit old and tiresome to hear about. So yeah, just leave it there. Um, yeah, and when Nintendo makes billions of dollars off of a Pokemon game that is not ready or might be upgraded on a new system, we never see any kind of benefit from that at all. You're never going to see a headline. I'm never going to come on here or the Nintendo podcast saying, "Oh yeah, Nintendo made a whole bunch of money, so now the video games are cheaper." Okay, that's it. All right, y'all. Next week, I guess we do a play-in preview, I guess, because we will know the standings by that time, or we'll be right there on it. But hey, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.